Welcome to another edition of Bearcats All Access. I'm your host, Marshall Kramsky. The Cincinnati football team coming off of a tough loss to the West Virginia Mountaineers. Head coach Scott Saterfield sits down with me to share how it all went wrong and what they're doing to prepare for a tough matchup on the road against Iowa State. Plus, one of the most explosive players on the Bearcats football team, Evan Pryor, he shares his special talent. All that and so much more coming up on Bearcats All Access right now.
Bearcats All Access, sponsored by All Good Home Improvements.
Coach, look back at the West Virginia tape. What is it that really stood out to you?
Defensively, we played a really good game. Offensively, we were moving the ball most of the day. Obviously, the big thing was turnovers. It's very hard to win in any football game if you turn the ball over like we did. That was obviously the difference in the game. We didn't cover very good in our special teams. I think that was another thing that stood out to me is in our punt team and our kickoff team. We gave up a few long ones in the return game. But other than that, I thought we played a really good game, minus the turnovers.
Quarterback Brendan Sorsby, he's been great all season. So much hype around him. When he has a game like that where he has those turnovers, as a former quarterback yourself, what is that conversation like with Brendan, who is young, but he's had such a good season besides, a few mistakes?
He's such a competitor. He's a fighter. He's trying to get every yard, every play, maximize every play. But there's a point in time where you have to take what the defense gives you, and sometimes the defense plays it great. Sometimes they make a great call. Okay, good job defense. Now let's just live for the next play. The call on fourth down is probably not a great call on my part. You just can't compound a bad call with a bad play, and it resulted in a touchdown for them.
Iowa State, they start off this year on a roll, 7 straight wins, and they've skidded recently. What is it about this team right now that you notice is different from earlier in the season?
There's not a ton different, really, quite honestly. I think they're a very solid football team. They do a lot of things really well. Offensively, they got 2 dynamic receivers that can win at any point in time. I think Rocco, their quarterback, is an outstanding quarterback. He can run, he can throw, he's a great passer. They use tight ends. They try to manipulate you on offense. And I think defensively, we're running the same defense. I think probably the one thing that stands out a little bit, maybe in the last 3 games, is they haven't stopped the run as well. But I think they're an outstanding football team. They're coached well, and I think you just have to be resilient. As I go back and you watch Iowa State, a lot of times these games they play in are very close, and they just kind of wear you down, and teams get impatient. Next thing you know, they make a mistake, and then Iowa State's up 10-14 in the fourth quarter, and the game's been tight all game long. So we have to be patient and poised, and at the same time, continue to play hard the whole game.
Coach Veit coming here from Iowa State, what insight is he able to give you for this game?
Well, I think, number one, we're going to Iowa State. It's obviously a difficult place to go play and go win. The field is tricky. The field, if you watch film, there's a lot of guys slipping and sliding. It's been like that for several years now. Just some insight on that. And then I think, it's personnel. He knows a lot of their guys there.
You bring up the field. That was one of the things I want to ask you about. You hear it on the broadcast a lot that there's certain spots on that field where there is a slip or a slide but it's usually pretty consistent. How do you prepare for that as a road team?
It's difficult, particularly, we're practicing in Nippert, and that's not the same. We got a turf out here. It's a grass field. We're playing at night. There'll be some moisture on the field. It's going to be wet, so there's going to be some slipping and some sliding. And you watch the film, it's not just the opponent. Iowa State's doing the same thing. They're slipping and sliding. We'll look at the different cleats and try to find the right cleat that we need to wear for that. We'll bring several pair. Pre-game, we'll try to get a good feel for it, and then throughout the course of the game, making adjustments as we play.
What's it going to take for you guys to go out to Ames, come back with a win, and then be bowl eligible?
Yeah, we're going to have to do the things that you need to do to win, which is take care of the football. Try to create some turnovers if we can. I think in a couple of their games, they've had some turnovers, but they're really good at that. That's one of their top things is turnover margin. Just play a fundamentally sound game and have patience and poise, and particularly on the road. Limit any kind of penalties, pre-snap penalties that we may have. Just stay in the game, be right there at the end, and go finish it out and close it in the fourth.
Coach, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Bearcat safety Antoine Peak Jr. leads the Big 12 in forced fumbles. He tells us he learned it all from his dad. Coming up on Bearcats All Access.
Keys to Success, sponsored by Columbia Hyundai and Genesis of Montgomery.
A son following in dad's footsteps, Antoine Peak Jr. has been wreaking havoc for the Cincinnati Bearcats as their middle safety. 20 years earlier, Antoine Peak Jr.'s father, Antoine Peak Sr., was a star for the Bearcats. Jr. currently leads the Big 12 with 4 forced fumbles. His dad, he has a school record 17 forced fumbles. Dan Horde spoke about this in the latest edition of the Let's Rain podcast.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome to the Let's Rain podcast, revealing conversations with UC coaches, players, and administrators. I'm your host, Dan Horde. I've been the radio voice of the Bearcats now for 25 years, and my guests on this episode are my first father-son combo. I did Hall of Famer Antoine Peak's games in the early 2000s, and now I have the opportunity to broadcast Antoine Peak Jr.'s games as a sophomore football player at UC. You're both Cincinnati guys. How important is the success of Bearcat football to you, having been raised here?
I mean, the fact that we're both. He's going to be an alumni, and being an alumni, and our family being here and being able to see the success of the program and being able to say, hey, my son and grandson went to that university, it's been special. It's been special.
And how about you? What's it mean to be one of the hometown heroes on the team right now?
It feels really good. Just being able to play for my family, playing for the name on the front and the back of my jersey. Just being able to do great things for the city.
All right, last thing. When you were a freshman a couple of years ago and redshirted, one of your teammates was Wilson Huber, Bearcat linebacker at the time. His dad was a Bearcat. His grandfather was a Bearcat. His great-grandfather was a Bearcat. Mm-hmm. We've got Antoine Peak. We've got Antoine Peak Jr. Somewhere down the road, could there be a tray, an Antoine Peak III wearing red and black? What do you think?
That's for sure a possibility.
Is that something that is kind of a dream in the back of your head?
Hey, like you said before, we want to create a legacy, and hopefully, with the job that me and him has done for the program, when they see another Peak come through, they know that that's one that they can count on. Yes, I do. One day, being able to see AP3 step out there, that'd be a beautiful thing.
I don't know if I'll still be broadcasting at that point. I'm getting up there in years, but it's been a thrill to broadcast Antoine Sr. and Antoine Jr.
Cincinnati Bearcats defensive coordinator Tyson Veit spent 8 years with Cincinnati's opponent today, the Iowa State Cyclones. Veit helped install the 3-3-5 defense that the Bearcats have had so much success with, allowing only 22 points per game. Let's learn more about Coach Veit from a feature this offseason.
From southeastern Ohio, grew up in a small town, one high school in the county. My mom was a third grade school teacher. My dad is an attorney. Grew up with two older brothers. We're all 5 years apart. So I was the youngest of three. And I had obviously the blessing of growing up in a small town. We had a newspaper at that point in time. We had one high school, so it was a great place to grow up, and there was great employment there at that point in time. And graduated from high school with roughly 265 kids. My oldest brother had graduated with over 300. So through that time, obviously the population and employment started to decrease at that point in time in southeastern Ohio. Yeah, so historically, my family we are Cincinnati Reds fans, so had been to Cincinnati growing up to watch the Reds, and in those years you were watching great teams of the 70s, as an avid baseball card collector, you knew all about those guys, and it was awesome. So a couple times a year we would make the drive to Cincinnati. Now it's a lot easier to make that trip from Logan, Ohio to Cincinnati, Ohio in this current time, as opposed to there weren't many roads that led that way from that way, so you had to go north to come south, etc. In those time periods. But so forever growing up, I knew where Cincinnati was, what Cincinnati was all about, and the great history there, obviously. And then certainly as a native of Ohio and spending most of my time here, even through the years of coaching, and having friends that coached here at one point in time too. You know a lot about it, obviously. There's been great tradition, great history, and all of those things that continue to, you follow the state you're from and the pride you have for it when you grow up here. Number one, it would be Coach Saterfield. That part of getting to know him and learn about him and what a great guy that he is, obviously, as he's selling the University of Cincinnati, and a great opportunity with not just being with Coach Saterfield at the University of Cincinnati, then the position that was available. All three of those things were extremely attractive and certainly are that for not just myself, but for my current family and our extended family as well. So a superior opportunity, absolutely.
He's one of the most explosive players for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team this season. We sit down with Evan Pryor coming up.
Bearcats All Access. Sponsored by All Good Home Improvements.
And one of the things Coach Saterfield talked about a lot last year was the lack of explosive plays, especially from the backfield. This year, you're kind of the answer to that. How quickly do you know you're gone?
As soon as the play is drawn up, you know, it's something that takes place very fast, you know, having your eyes in the right place, and the rest you just got to do on your own.
When did you realize in life that explosiveness is what sets you apart?
Very early. I look at the game from a different lens. The team with the most points wins the game. That's how I view it. So every time I touch the ball, I try and put points on the board.
Who taught you that?
My dad.
What's your relationship like with your dad, especially in football?
He coached me growing up from 5 years old till he couldn't coach me anymore, middle school, high school. So he's always been that voice in the back of my head telling me to go score.
How much of molding who you are is being a coach's son?
A lot, especially at a young age. You try and just go out there and play football. You're not focused on much, but, you know, when you have someone like my father in your ear, you know, who's having you out there go play with purpose, you know, even at a young age, it opens your eyes. And even when I get to this point, you know, being 22 years old, playing at college level, a lot of the same thought process still goes through my head.
How involved is Dad in your weekly, day-to-day basis, because he knows what you were like growing up, especially on the football field?
Every day, he's probably 2 to 3 phone calls, you know, telling me to, you know, make sure I get something out of practice, be intentional in the things that I do, not only on the field, but off the field as well in the classroom. So huge thanks goes out to Pops. When
you get back to your phone in the locker, is it already blown up with text from him, or does he kind of give you a minute? Yeah, no, it already is. I don't think he knows that I don't see my phone during the game. But he has like a play-by-play, a comment of everything from the game. So you transferred here from Ohio State. What was it about Cincinnati that you decided to make this your new home? Just the family feel of it. You know, everyone in this building, you know, has a special way of making you feel included, making you feel needed and loved. That's the foundation in which you want to build off of. You know, the football and things on the field, stuff will go later. But, you know, if you're not willing to go out there and lay it on the line for the guys next to you and the coaches, you know, it doesn't really mean much. What's been your biggest surprise, whether it be the city of Cincinnati, campus of UC, or the team? What was your biggest surprise moving here that was different? The food selection. Oh, yeah? And I didn't know much about the food around here in Cincinnati, you know, downtown, OTR, stuff like that. It's kind of helped me be able to open up, be open into eating different things. Shout it out. What's your spots? I'll go Heyday, get a good burger. Nasu, I love hibachi. Every time I have guests, we have to go to Yard House. You're a hibachi guy. Can you catch the shrimp in your mouth? Yeah, nah, not the shrimp. The probably, vegetable? Yeah, probably the vegetable for sure, though, for sure. Oh, do you have a good rate of toss catch on that? It depends. So when I go into there, I got to see who I'm going to have as my cook, you know. Because, you know, it's a process. So not every cook is going to toss you the vegetable. So depending on who I have, I might be ready, I might not be ready. So you're eyeing the cook up and down before. Like, it's game day for you at hibachi, too. Yeah, for sure. I got to see what's going on, for sure. If you win later against Iowa State, bowl eligible after a season last year, 3 wins, 6 wins this year. What will it take for the offense specifically to make the difference against a very good Iowa State defense? Just executing, you know, that's what it comes down to. There's nothing wrong with the calls and coaches. We just got to trust in the coaches to put us in the right situations and positions. And all we got to do is go out there, play hard, and leave it all out there. And at the end of the 4 quarters, you know, look up and see if we win. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate your time. Thank you. One of the newest players on the Bearcats men's basketball team is quickly becoming a fan favorite. We catch up with Conor Hickman coming up on Bearcats All Access. Cincinnati Bearcats men's basketball player Conor Hickman is quickly becoming a fan favorite. Last year at Bradley, Hickman averaged 15 points per game and about 40% from three-point range. Now Hickman in Cincinnati after entering the transfer portal last season. The 6'3" guard from Bloomington, Indiana is trying to help UC get back to the NCAA tournament.
Entering the transfer portal, you had a lot of interest. Very quickly, you made your decision. Why Wes Miller? Why UC?
What really won out for me from Cincinnati was Coach Wes. The first time talking to him, you can just feel the energy, the desire, and the need he has to not only win, but see us develop as men. And I thought that really spoke to me. And just that's where I wanted to spend my last year of college basketball, was playing for somebody like him.
You know, you kind of look like him. You favor him a little bit. He doesn't have any he doesn't have any children, but no. You look like you could be a younger brother of Wes Miller.
I don't know about that.
You know, Coach Wes Miller still thinks he's the best shooter in the gym. Now, you came over here and you got a jump shot that's like automatic. Yeah. Have you guys had a shootout yet?
No, we haven't had a shootout yet, but I imagine it'd be a close battle. But, you know, I think I get a few more shots up a day than he does, so I might still have the touch.
Rip Hamilton with the Pistons, Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors, two players that stick out to me that are constantly on the move. In the Wes Miller system, you kind of fit that bill. You're constantly moving. Talk about the movement that you have as a player.
Being a shooter now is so valuable in college basketball, and you get guarded differently. You know, people tend to play closer to you, so you have to find more creative ways to get your shot off. I really developed that over my 3 years at Bradley, and I think, yeah, coming here, it was needed, but also just being able to play the right way and be in the right spots for guys who can create for off the dribble and, you know, get you open shots. I think that's important.
You know, back in the old days, if you wanted to fight, they would tell you to take 10 paces, turn around, and you would draw quickly. Your catch and shoot release is so quick. Have you ever timed it to see how fast you get your shot off? You know how you do sports science?
Yeah, the sports science. That would be cool. I've not done that before, but coming into a league like the Big 12, I have to get my shot off faster, and that's actually something I've been working on these past couple months, is being shot ready, so that way I can get my shot off faster against the better athletes.
Yeah, you played with a little edge to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you like it. You talk back a little bit when guys try to rattle you because they see you're small in stature and they think they can get to you, but that doesn't bother you.
No, not at all. It's just why I get so worked up. Just give a little side comment. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just letting them know that you're not just going to back down.
Like I said, you may be small in stature, but you got some bounce to you. When's the first time you got a dunk in a basketball game?
It was either freshman travel ball or sophomore school ball season, but I remember my first dunk was like my 8th grade summer, but I didn't get any in game until a little bit later.
And how did you feel once you got that dunk?
I felt weird. It's a new way to score the basketball. I'd never done it before, so it was a little odd at first.
A new way to score the basketball.
Uh-oh. You got some bounce to him. We'll see it. We saw it.
Cincinnati women's basketball coach Katrina Merryweather enters her second season as the head coach of her alma mater. Merryweather brought immediate improvement to the Bearcats. They were 14-18 last season, which is a 5-win improvement from the year before and the most wins that the school has posted since 2019. Let's learn more about Coach Merryweather from a feature this offseason.
From last year postseason through the offseason up till now, talk to me about the development and the progression.
The most exciting part has been having Jill back, because we know that she had some options in the spring. So the fact that she came back to put on a Bearcat jersey one more time is a huge deal. We got in the portal and got some pieces that we thought we really needed. And then the returners have come back with a renewed sense of urgency. We didn't end last year like we wanted to and like we planned on. So we knew coming back it was going to have to be a different level of focus, and we've had that since the summer.
So the leadership. Who can we look for more leadership on the court?
Well, Jill's always going to be our heartbeat, so she's got that under control every day. Shows up, works hard. She's the example that she expects. And the addition of Tanea Hilton, the point guard out of Texas A&M, we're happy to have her. She's extremely talented. She's played at a really high level, and just having a point guard out there makes a world of difference, not just for her, but the way she creates and opens up things for the rest of the team.
With Jill, with Tanea, how do you now poise yourself going into some of the not necessarily specific goals of wins and losses, but some of your big picture goals for the team?
Yeah, I think what it is starts with me and making some decisions earlier. When you come in and you take over a program, sometimes there's this evaluation time where you're trying to figure out what the players are good at, the things that the team could be good at, and sometimes you can let that linger a little longer. And one thing that I'm going to make sure I do this year is make decisions about how we're going to play. And you bring back Reagan Jackson, who has been phenomenal. As a sophomore, she had a great freshman year. She works hard every single day. Ari Jackson's incredibly talented, so we have her coming back. And then you have these players, this freshman class that now has a year under their belt, and they all have come back significantly better than a year ago.
Talk to me a little bit about the process of going from recruit to player to coach to now head coach at the University of Cincinnati.
When people look at the fact that I played here, and more importantly, how many years our staff has been together, it's been me and Ashley the entire 9 years have been a head coach, me and Abby for 7 years. Obviously, I've known Brina forever, and everyone that's on our staff, we've been together, have some sort of connectivity. We're all closer to home. And so sometimes the question is, what's next? And I always, Squinlin, here is now, here is next, here is as long as here is going to be, because this is the place where we all want to be. This is where we feel supported, where we feel that there's going to be so many opportunities to grow the program. And I think that when recruits hear that, they say, yeah, I want to be a part of that. That sounds like it could be something special, and that's what we've been able to do in our recruiting class.
That's all the time we have this week on Bearcats All Access. The Cincinnati football team getting ready to play a tough game on the road in Ames, Iowa against the Iowa State Cyclones. I'm Marshall Kramsky. Make sure to tune in next week to Bearcats All Access every Saturday at 11:30 a.m. on WCPN.